Go.
All right, welcome back to another episode. This is episode 5, I believe, of Limitless Evolution Podcast with myself, Nick Justice, Taylor Moore, and today we are inviting on Mr. Dom Kuza. Dom is a absolutely fantastic, spectacular coach in the industry, and probably one of the smartest people that I have known in quite some time. And he is one guy that we all look up to as a coach, but also as a person, how he runs his business. So we thought it would be great to have him on. And pick his brain for a little bit, but also just educate you guys and see coaching from a different perspective. And that's what this podcast is entirely about. So, Dom, how you doing, my man? Welcome to the podcast.
Good. Thank you guys for having me on.
Absolutely.
Man, thank
Did you
you.
have anybody compete at Universe? I think you had one guy. I was talking to him in the DMs today. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I had
Dom's like,
men's
Go ahead.
physique guy, a bikini, my only bikini client, and then a classic guy.
Nice. I know your men's physique guy. He was at Junior Nats because I talked to him a little bit there, and I talked to you at Junior Nats. How did he end up doing?
Pretty poor. That guy's body was shot, man. 3 peaks in a row is a lot. And then 2 days out, there was a big issue with his food, where he got stuck in traffic. He didn't have. So he has 5 meals a day. He didn't have meal 2, 3, 4, and 5 until 5 p.m. on.
Damn.
So all that backlogged food and backlogged digestion. And actually he peaks on higher water too. He does not look good with low water. So he was still drinking, I think 4 liters 2 days out. But again, backlogged on the day. So then one day out was tough because it was woke up really weird because it was just all this food digesting over time. He's still digesting the days before's food. And then it just messed things up because then one day I was more of okay, I got to salvage what we have and fix what the problems are now versus properly taking a 1 day out approach. But it's okay. Because honestly, Taylor saw him in person, what he looked like at the beginning of 1 day out to what he looked like on show day. I mean, he did a complete 180.
So, yeah,
The thing
for
is,
sure.
I was talking to him in the on Instagram today. I really like the guy. He is very level-headed, and he seemed like he wasn't placing blame on anything besides, he was saying dude, my body was tired. It was shot. There's a lot of things that we couldn't control. He wasn't.
There's a lot of uncontrolled variables for him.
He wasn't placing blame on judges, which what people always tend to do, which people always love to do, is point fingers there, their coach, blah blah blah, this and that. But it sounds like you guys are going into an off season putting some size on.
Yeah, he needs to grow. He needs to get denser. He needs to, and I tell a lot of guys, take the time because more tissue, the leaner you can get, the better your peaks, the easier your peaks are. And then on top of that too, for him, he doesn't have the best ab genetics. So it's you take somebody like Tariq and you put him next to him, Tariq's waist is something this guy will never have. So you have to make up differences elsewhere, and the density, in his back, his chest, you continue to work on that, then you can make up for the lack of a deep ab wall, like Tariq's, for example.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the plan for him now. But I've been working with him for 5 years.
Yeah.
Honestly, longer. It's almost been 6 years. So
Okay.
That's crazy.
we have a relationship to the point where it's this is what we fucked up on. This is what we did right. This is what you did wrong. This is what I did wrong, whatever. And we just get over it pretty quickly and just move on to the next thing. Because his junior nationals look was probably the best look he's ever had, ever.
Yeah, I liked his junior Nats look for sure.
Yeah, he was backstage. He got told you would have placed higher. It's a little bit too much belly breathing in his posing. And then, which we had that mistake again at Universe. But he just was shot at Universe, which, for anybody, peaking 3 times in a row like that is hard. Because we did a local show in Michigan to qualify.
I did it last year, dude. Me and Cam did. We did Sid Gillen, Battle at the River 2 weeks later.
Well, because you had to do Battle of the fucking River.
Yeah, bro. God, because that placing broke the internet.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was wild.
We did. Yeah, we did 4 shows in 6 weeks, 4 shows in 5 weeks. I forgot what it was, but I'm surprised that my body was still so responsive by the time I turned pro at Universe.
Yeah, like Ryan, he can push really hard for a long time, but then like the fatigue when it hits that dude, it like hits him like a freight train. And that's what honestly I think happened a lot because his body just even before the 2 days out thing is just his body wasn't doing what it normally does when he eats and when he chills and stuff like that.
Dom,
okay.
I was just gonna ask, like, obviously it used to be a thing back in the day where people would just compete, and peak. Where do you see like people start to drop off? Like how many peaks before people are like, okay, like before it's just like, okay, let's call it. Or I mean, I know it's person dependent, but like, what do you think the difference is between now and I guess then, if that makes sense?
I think the guys who competed that often back then like that though also didn't have like a real career.
Yeah.
This guy's a cop. Like he works a night shift. Like like you look at some of those pros that would just constantly compete. I mean, they're fully sponsored.
Mm-hmm.
All their fucking job is to compete. Like
that is true.
So then their body's you're not adding a ton of life stress on top of the whole equation. So I think it's just relative to what the outside stressors of the prep are like, and how your body manages, that stress and how that affects just your ability to continue to peak and compete.
Yeah, man.
Even without sorry, Nick, one more thing. Even without the stress of like let's just say somebody is a full-time bodybuilder, do you think that there's a certain amount of peaks kind of someone has in them in a year without like do you think that that's one of the most stressful things on their body as far as
especially if there's somebody that
times?
needs like a lot of manipulation to like actually look good. Like you got some guys that are like, hanging, like they need dramatic peaks like every single time. Like you probably get 3 of those maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Got you. Go ahead, Nick.
No, I was gonna say, man, like that job stress. That's one thing that we've talked about pretty heavily on here. Is just like people underestimate how much that can influence a look. Even going into peak week. Like I've got a girl. She's a detective. She is a wellness competitor, and we're just in the off season right now. And just her stress with work, whatever investigation she's doing, and she does a lot of stuff with like crimes against children. So it's a lot of shit she's looking at, going through, blah, blah, blah. And we can't really even push food right now. And this is off season, because gut's all screwed up from stress. Sleep isn't there, and on top of that, we're in the process of also trying to wean her off her birth control in a proper way. So it's like that stress, man, in off season or contest prep, people underestimate how crazy it can be on your physique and just mental in general.
Yeah, no, big time. I think that's a difference maker for most people to make it through or not.
Yeah. But anyway, how'd your bikini athlete and your classic guy do?
The bikini girl took 3rd, which was nice.
Nice.
We're gonna do another show. And then the classic guy needs some size. He needs tissue. It was probably the best that guy's ever looked in his entire life. Like, I mean, he was Saran wrap, dry, full, veiny, hard. I mean, Taylor saw him in person. That guy's never looked like that before, which is hard. You look like that, like, and then you still don't do well. I think he got like 6th, but it's tough. But he's gonna do another show too, and then we'll try to figure out with him. I've been coaching him for a few years now, but it's only been preps. Like I have not had a true like year or 2 years of just growth with him yet.
Do you prefer when somebody comes to you like right now with where you're at in business, with where you're at with coaching, your time, etc. Do you prefer having somebody come on like, hey, let me control a few things first. Let's make improvements. Let's go into a good year-long off season before you consider a prep with them?
Yeah, I'd like a year with you just because, like, even a seasoned guy, it's just nice to have that year because I catch on really quick. I mean, to the point where like if I know enough about your client, I could probably help you peak them. Like, and that's where like if I get that time with you, man, it's like I'll know you like the back of my hand by the time it comes for your prep next year. And that's always been my learning curve. It doesn't take me long to learn, but I just need the exposure. Once I get the exposure, I just need some time with you.
But
I can do that.
that also carries over to why you're such a good mentor and you can help people on that side of things too, is because like just a little bit of information and you can give very, 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 very accurate and precise decision
Yeah.
making, like when it comes down to
I
just
mean,
peaking
dude, in
itself.
transparency, I've written people's peaks for them.
Yeah.
Like, if I get enough information and enough detail about like how the person responds to a refeed, how they respond to X amount of carbs or X amount of fat, if I know how much salt they are taking in, how much water, if I get exposed to enough stuff like that, I could probably almost do it myself.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%. That makes sense.
But if I get the time with an athlete that's coming on, it's just way better.
Yeah.
Speaking of peak weeks, what when it comes to like sodium and potassium, like I remember, I used to really hyperfixate on like the NAK ratio. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that I've not. I don't want to say gravitated away from, but something I'm not really overly concerned about. Is that something you try to keep? Well, obviously keep constant, in terms of sodium, potassium, but is for people listening, when you are going into a peak with somebody, do you like to have potassium higher than sodium, sodium higher potassium? Ideally, I know it's obviously individualistic, but where do you kind of like to manipulate the sodium and potassium if you do?
So I usually try to go into a peak just with sodium being
Yep.
standardized. And I usually do that around like 3 weeks out. And then that's just really standard. And it's nice to figure that out like 3 weeks out. Because at that point you should be practically as lean as you're going to be. Maybe not like fully, just some residual fat loss that'll probably still happen, but enough to where like the sodium content really influences your look.
Yeah.
So I usually do that around 3 weeks out because then I can figure out, like I've had it where like I've started people on like a quarter teaspoon every meal. They gain 5 pounds in 2 days. And I'm like, okay, this is way too much. Like I don't want to be dealing with that, 10 days out from a show. So that's why I do that around like 3 weeks out just to figure that out a little bit more accurately. So I usually just always go into peak weeks with water figured out like that and then sodium figured out like that. And then potassium, I don't really worry too much about going into peak week. It's usually just kind of whatever's coming in from the food. I don't really concern myself too much with the ratio. But if we look at like fundamental, a lot of people like a 1-to-1. I would say for a bigger person, more muscular, trains pretty hard, I would say maybe doing like a 2-to-1 sodium to potassium might make a little bit more sense. Um, but that's all relative to how it influences their look. Because at the end of the day, bodybuilding at the competitive stage is not about performance; it's about how you look. Um,
Hmm.
so that's something that I'll start paying attention to a little bit. But then I use potassium salt in peaks. I think it's useful. I like using potassium to like get into the position to where like if you pulse potassium and like take a bunch of potassium at once, that's a nice way to like trigger those sodium potassium pumps you were talking about. It could potentially like draw more sodium out. Fluid will follow, which because fluid follows wherever the highest concentration of salt is. So if we're pushing more salt out, then you're going to also push more fluid out.
And
Uh,
that's why you bring the potassium salt in, is to do
Yeah,
that.
so then you spike potassium like that. That can trigger the pumps to turn on and then push sodium out of the cell. Then fluid will follow that. It's kind of like a diuretic, for example, like pushes
Yeah.
sodium out. Water follows that sodium.
What I like to do too, I don't know if you've noticed the same thing, but when you bring in something like just potassium salt, it seems that it's pushing the sodium out. Water is coming with that. There's obviously going to be both subcutaneous and intramuscular water that's going to be going because you can't really pick which one's going to leave. But I feel like they retain a little bit more of the intramuscular water. They still look fuller. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Instead,
yeah. So
Isn't it pulling in?
when you spike
Yeah.
potassium, and then especially when we're doing this, we're probably feeding them at the same time. So when you pulse potassium, The key is pulsing, and then keeping carbs higher. That actually, with that insulin now, is going to drive more potassium uptake into a cell, which then actually causes more cell volumization, which is why you could actually look pretty full still. And I like that. And then I always alternate. Like meal 1 will be like both. Meal 2 would just be salt. Meal 3 would be both. Meal 4 would be one. Like just like that. And the reason my justification in my head for that is meals with both support intracellular water pull, so into the muscle, and then sodium being pushed out. And then meals with just salt is good for sustaining blood volume, because if your blood volume drops too much, then your renin angiotensin system turns on, and then you start to retain water.
Yep.
But potassium being spiked also is really good for suppressing aldosterone, which I think works, again, really well. I mean, dude, you could peak people pretty well with just doing this without using a diuretic.
That's
I like I'm not going to say I like diuretics, but like I'm not uncomfortable to use them, but I know a lot about diuretics. And like, I think proper use with a diuretic, you need to know the ins and outs, the up and downs of a diuretic before implementing it. But I do think they're useful.
No, I'm right now. I've got a natty guy going into his 3rd show this year. He's got a sick physique, man, sick classic physique, but no diuretics. The first 2 shows are WNBF. He turned pro in his WNBF show for classic, but now we're doing an NPC show, and he's just like even though it's NPC, nothing's tested. He just wants to, yeah, let's leave diuretics out. Let's not use thyroid support. And that's literally what I'm doing. Is just, all right, we're going to just manipulate that look with, driving potassium, pumping potassium, and no diuretic. And it's working. I've used diuretics in the past. I've only used Diazide, which is something I did want to pick your brain about when it comes to diuretic usage, because you know a lot about them. And as we're on the topic, in terms of certain diuretics, which ones do you tend to gravitate towards more when the application is there? And when you it's going to get that desired look? Are you going towards Diazide? Are you going towards Aldactone? What's your go-to?
Diazide's usually my go-to, just because, again, I do like setups where if you're trying to really drive fluid on somebody, we favor potassium a little bit, and with the triampherine portion of Diazide, that helps with potassium loss, so you're not losing as much potassium. So I do like using Diazide, and I think diuretics can be used in different scenarios. Like, a lot of coaches will use it just to like kind of clean up a look, but you can use it really, really well if you're trying to like just get a ton of water retention off of somebody. I have peaks like that are in my course and my contest prep course, that I took guys that were like crazy water retentive 3 days out, and like lost like 12 to 13 pounds within 2 days, just utilizing a diuretic, because they just were retaining so much fluid. So like I always teach, like, diuretics can be used in 2 different ways. Like, kind of as a baseline to kind of just help with fluid loss a little bit, if you're just trying to clean up a film or a look, or in a more aggressive water loss way. And the best way to think about that is, like, we can utilize that diuretic in those 2 scenarios. In the water loss way, actually temporarily reducing sodium is a good thing, because it makes the diuretic work even better, right? So I always tell people, think about whenever you're applying a drug, think about its medicinal usage. What is this used for, right? So diuretics, really common in like congestive heart failure.
Yep.
With congestive heart failure, what kind of diet do they tell them to follow? It's usually a low to no sodium diet. Part of the reason is those people are also on a diuretic. When you eat high amounts of sodium alongside a diuretic, you're making the diuretic's job harder, because you're just putting back in sodium that the thing's trying to get rid of, right? Because it's not that diuretics are initially, their water loss is caused by the sodium pushing out, because water follows wherever the highest concentration of salt is. So if that's all outside and going into form into urine, that's why more water follows it, and that's why you pee. So that's why it just depends what you're using the diuretic for. But that's a good way to like get ready for a weight cap pretty easily. If you got a guy that just retains a ton of water in a peak week, like, again, really useful. If you want to flush them hard before bed, a lot of people do diazide before bed. Simple sodium pull with it could flush them a ton overnight. So it just depends what you're trying to use it for,
Yeah.
really.
Have you ever used Aldactone? And do you think, I personally haven't because I've never needed to, but do you think that there is any application for Aldactone?
Yeah, Aldactone's good because Aldactone's a terrible diuretic as far as diuresis goes, because it acts so far in the loop in the nephron, so it acts towards the collecting ducts of the nephron, and that at that point there's not too much mineral reabsorption happening. And look at it like this: the the degree of impact a diuretic has is based on how much minerals it can stop reabsorbing. So Lasix can stop a lot of sodium reabsorption. That's why Lasix is so strong, because it forces a lot of sodium out. Diazide's okay. Aldactone really far in that nephron cell, so it's not going to do too much. But Aldactone is great for suppressing aldosterone, and then it's also great for building potassium levels. Where I would use Aldactone, it's really good for nervous competitors, because if their stage nerves are a big part of why they get watery, that could be aldosterone driven water retention. If we could block that with some telmisartan, and we could probably block it with some Aldactone too. And then now there's a phenotype study done on African American individuals that have what is called primary hyperaldosteronism, and in the study it was looking over levels of aldosterone in African Americans, and it was founded that there was a good bit of higher aldosterone levels. And one of the things that I believe in, and I've had good success with it, with African American peaks, is putting in Aldactone and then maybe even some potassium salt with it, to help with suppressing the aldosterone as much as possible.
Huh.
That's a you have to be careful, obviously, because taking potassium on top of Aldactone can lead to hyperkalemia, which is too high of potassium levels. A really good way to drive potassium down, though, if you ever had to, insulin is great for it. So like either just injecting insulin or just eating really high sugary food that can drive a big insulin spike could get those potassium levels lower.
Gotcha.
Dom, when it comes to making these types of decisions, because I know that like a lot of times I mean, I know it's an experience thing, obviously, but like, do you see studies, the research and stuff like that, and kind of just like, I'm gonna try this here and there, and then you gain experience based off of that, or like what causes you to say, okay, I'm gonna use this with this person or this with that person, other than like the experience of it?
When it comes to drugs, it's always based on the medicine. Like, why was it used? What was it used for? And then how could I twist it to be applied maybe
Mhm.
off-labeled usage or something like that. The aldactone on paper makes a lot of sense with people who have high aldosterone, though.
Yeah, yeah,
That was kind of what came into my head about that. Um,
okay.
and then that'll push people into more favoriting potassium. So kind of back to what we were talking about. Some people look really good on it. Some people
Mhm.
look a lot better when their potassium levels are a little bit higher than their sodium levels. Um,
Okay,
but again, that's an experience
gotcha.
thing. You're not gonna you need time with an
Yeah,
athlete to figure that out.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I have a question based off of we were talking about this earlier this morning, you and I were, but I want to touch on the like refeeding too often in a prep, and like because this is something that especially popped in my head thinking about your athletes at Universe. They were all gutted, like just ridiculously peeled. What what do you think? Like a lot of people say, the difference between getting somebody lean and truly, stage peeled is that fatigue management type of thing. But I feel like a lot of people go too far with it. What do you feel like? Like, can you talk about that a little bit? Kind of what we were talking about this
Yeah.
morning.
So I teach refeeds in a way where I think they're I think the fatigue management thing in prep is overdone.
Hmm.
I think people kind of lean into that a little too much because that's kind of the new hip thing to do for preps right now. Um, I think there is a very acceptable amount of fatigue that a prep should have.
Hmm.
And I think coaches get a little too trigger happy with refeeds to fatigue manage too often. And I think it really hurts the ability to lose fat. I mean, let's like, at the simplest form, right? A thing that could help you lose a lot of fat is just having glycogen pretty low, right?
Hmm.
Force the body into a different substrate to use for energy. Um, One of the things that I normally see is like refeeding too often, or like every time the guy like loses too much weight, they just automatically refeed. Like, and they refeed. I think sometimes these refeeds are too high because then you're oversaturating glycogen. And it's going to take days for them to kind of deplete that and then get back into a good fat loss point. You have Parker coming up 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is. And you sent me pictures of him today. And I was like, I wouldn't let this guy get flatter than this, but that doesn't mean you need to like feed him all the time.
Hmm.
That's where I think like maintenance days, moderate days, I think are really good for like helping relieve some fatigue without slowing down fat loss. Because I was telling you, like, this isn't food that's going to oversaturate the guy to the point where now it's going to take multiple days for his weight to come back down. It's
Yeah.
enough food to get some fatigue off of him. Then maybe you pair that with like a cardio break or something, and then
Hmm.
you're right back into a good fat loss position. Towards the end of prep, like these guys that I have, I'm usually doing low days, dig days, and then I'm using the moderate days as my carryover going into that. I'm not usually giving these huge refeeds 3 weeks, 2 weeks out from a show. Um, I'll do a couple, maybe moderate days in a row, but I'm not
Hmm.
going to do a crazy aggressive food push that close to a show, especially with a guy like Parker. He looks so good,
Hmm.
but we could always afford to be a little leaner. So I
Yeah.
looked at it like, okay, Parker's rate of loss has been really good. His rate of change has been really good. But I don't think if he gets too flat, then you're going to have to kind of bring him out of a hole.
Hmm.
So that's where like a moderate day comes in to play so nicely to help control that. I think a lot of coaches feed way too aggressively too often, but you can see it. Like those coaches never have the peeled guys on stage.
Hmm.
They might have guys that win. It just might be their lucky day or something, and they might just have picked the right show. But they're not truly like. I mean, there's guys that I could think of that just never had like crazy peeled people, um, just because I know they refed a lot.
Hmm. Like every time, somebody, I
Yeah,
think
like
the
there was a
big
guy
thing
I was
is,
helping recently. Like he just kept doing it, and I'm like,
yeah,
why?
yeah,
And he's like, well, he lost 3 pounds, and I'm like, who cares? Like, just let the
yeah.
guy keep losing, bro. Like,
I mean, there's a lot of people that like, oh, you hit a new low, refeed, hit a new low,
yeah,
refeed.
that's kind of mental to me. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
see the purpose of that. Like,
yeah,
I'm coaching Scott. I don't even know how to say his last name, Misisnik
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like that dude's like metabolism is nuts. Like off season's like 6,500 calories. Like his low day's 3,200 right now. But like he's somebody who's losing weight pretty fast. And like, some weeks he'll lose weight pretty rapidly and he'll message me and be like, hey bro, like, could I have a high day today? And I'm like, no. Like
Yeah.
like you could have a moderate day tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
Sometimes I think the client or the athlete sometimes gets in their own head too because they always see online on Instagram, etc. Oh, this person just said they're getting a refeed because they dropped 2, 3, 4 pounds, whatever, and it's always on Instagram, and it almost seems to be that Instagram. It's like a dick measuring contest of who can eat the most food for the longest in prep and stay lean. And it's like sometimes the athlete gets it in their head, like they start asking, "Hey, can I have more food now? Can I have more food?" And they don't understand, like, "Yo, we do need to have consecutive days where you're flat." But there's a difference between getting too flat and a flat where we want to maintain and have a little bit of that fullness. But sometimes I think people just need to be like, you know what, take a step back and just realize, like, all right, if your coach is doing things the way they should be doing them, or they know why they're doing things. All right, you don't need, just because you're dropping weight does not mean you need a free meal, a refeed, a pull on cardio, etc. And I agree with you, Dom, about the fatigue management being kind of overdone in prep. I 100% agree with that. And the thing is, for my 4 or 5 years of coaching, I used to be the coach that would overdo the fatigue management right off the bat, and I would feed people too much. But that's what this entire thing is about: is like always learning more, doing different things, figuring out what does not work. But yeah, man, I think social media and refeeds and prep, man, I don't understand it. People just pride themselves on how much food they're eating.
You're muted. There you go.
I think you said it best. Like, it's just a comparison game online. Like,
Yeah.
hey, like, oh, I lost whatever, so I'm refeeding now, and people just get in their heads too often about it. And then, I mean, dude, people are just scared. I think social media has actually made it harder to prep, because, like, it's hard to, like, especially if you're somebody who has a following and stuff. Like, it's hard to, like, post pictures when you're really flat and, like, don't look good. Because, like, when you get, I mean, we've all been there. Like, when you get really flat, bro, you don't just look flat. You look soft as shit, too. So it's like, you don't want to post anything. You don't want to be, like, out there on that. And then you see people bursting full in a prep, and, maybe they might be at a different point of a prep, but you're not taking that into consideration. So you think something's wrong with your prep now. And, I mean, I think social media definitely makes it harder for people to prep. I mean, AJ, for example, he's at the men's physique pro. We won the overall at nationals a couple of years ago, and I told him this past pro debut he did, um, I don't want you on Instagram for the whole prep, and he didn't, and he was so good this prep. Like, it was such a good prep for him.
Nice.
But there's just a lot. I mean, and people, especially like genetically gifted people, now the pressure's on, and people are commenting, and people are getting in your head about like what you should be able to achieve, and you're commenting that you're doing your first pro show, and it's like, you're gonna go to the Olympia, and you're like, no, they're not. Like,
Yeah.
And the thing
Are
is,
you?
too, man, I think we can say the same thing for off season as well. Off season, it's getting to a point where I told Taylor about this, where I'm getting sick of people also having the pissing contest of who can stay leanest in the off season and eat the most food and still grow the most. And I think it is a byproduct of Instagram and people only showing the highlight reel, because then people really they only attribute their other people only attribute their success to, like, okay, why is Nick's client eating 3,500 calories and I'm still on like 2,700 calories in my off season? Like, it doesn't fucking matter, dude. You know, like the other day I had a client at the end of his check-in. He was like, "Hey man, can you throw up some comparisons for me?" And he just competed. He won his class at a regional show last December. Looked fantastic, inside out, peeled. We're close to the overall. Didn't have it. I'm like, all right, dude, you need size. The other day, he was like, hey, can you throw up comparisons from when we first started together 2 years ago compared to now? I'm like, no, I don't need to. Like, dude, you know how well you're progressing. You know that
yeah,
you're eating a amount of food right now, and you and I've had the talk where it's not about Instagram, it's not about me gassing you up. It's about, hey, do the fucking work and just shut your mouth. And it's like, and I'm not going to say that directly like that to him. There's times where we do, as coaches, we have to be direct to some people in certain ways and give feedback maybe a little differently to some people. But man, Instagram's a drug in the off season. It's a drug in contest prep, and people get so fixated on other people's highlight reels that they don't realize that they need to take a step back and realize, like, their own highlight reel in their own life, and realize, like, you know what, I do need to just trust in what's happening.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's
for
tough,
sure.
man.
Dom, I have a question. I wrote down some questions that I wanted to ask you. Just, um, what is one trait that you think every coach needs in order to be successful at a high level? If you had to pick one.
Emotional disconnection.
Nice.
That's a great one.
Go into that for people listening.
You, you. So I'll say this: I've seen a lot of coaches make mistakes because they made a decision based off of emotion and not off of logic. Especially when it comes time for, I mean, anything really, even lifestyle coaching too. Like, just not reacting, but thinking first is really important as a coach. Like even after like Universe, for example, right? Obviously, me and Ryan were very upset. I texted him, hey, give it a couple of days, let emotions fall off, then we'll talk. And then that's when we had our conversation. Especially when you're coaching people that are pretty close to you or that you've been coaching for a long time, getting disconnected emotionally is really important, because if you are too emotionally invested, you'll make decisions based off of bias and not off of what needs to get done. Or you'll be hesitant to have uncomfortable conversations. You'll be, that's a big one. Like, just, you have to be comfortable to have some uncomfortable conversations, because every time you avoid an uncomfortable conversation with an athlete, you're actually just enabling the same behavior to continue. So emotional disconnections are huge. Think, don't react. That's like kind of the tagline I like.
Yeah.
I actually like that a lot because like Parker and I have obviously that's been my best friend since middle school, but he and I have always had pretty good success within bodybuilding. But I think that that's something that I struggled with, and I think either you or Mike or both said, had mentioned this to me like a year or 2 years ago or something like. Especially he and I were living together last prep, and it's like, the decisions that I was making during the prep was based off of, how I could see he was feeling throughout the day, how I could see he was acting throughout the
Yeah,
day, like
it's
that
all
type of thing.
emotional.
Yeah, and it's just emotional, like, okay, we'll have a refeed today, or okay, get a burger and fries rather than just a high day, or something like that. And that's something that we've done really, really, really well this prep, is just like not over communicating. Like I send his check-ins, he sends his check-ins, I send a response, and it's just okay, cool, go about it. And we talk about bodybuilding obviously outside of check-ins, but it's not like to the extent of like I'm worried about how he's feeling and stuff like that. And this is probably our most successful prep ever. So
I
Yeah.
I
like
actually like that a lot.
yeah, because one of my closest friends is one of my men's physique pros, and this season it's been, hey man, we're going to communicate only on WhatsApp for check-ins, like when we're texting or FaceTime. Like I don't want to go into your check-in much more than we need to. Like I don't want to, when we see each other at the gym or when we're together just hanging out, I want to leave that emotional connection for coaching or for our friendship, completely aside. Not that it doesn't matter to me, but I think that's something I had to
No, it's
learn.
just realistic for his
Yeah,
success.
yeah, I had to learn that. But no, Dom, that's a great one. I think that's something not many people would really realize the importance
You
of. Is
wouldn't
that
even think about it.
no,
Mm-mm.
exactly right?
Yeah.
I
So
don't
it's,
think people even
and I think
realize how
it's
much
important
they're.
to understand that me saying that doesn't mean that you lack passion. It
Mhm,
You can be passionate without being emotionally biased.
mhm.
And that's that. I mean, but that takes a lot. That's a lot of mental. That's a lot of mental development that you need to get like that.
Yeah.
Very true. That
Uh,
that was a wonderful one. But one thing that I was kind of wanted to pick your brain on um is, I forgot to write this one down. But something that you've done extremely well, because I remember I've been following you for quite some time, Dom.
I've known you
Back,
since you were 130 pounds, bro.
bro, I know. that
mm-hmm.
was back in the days, and you were with
150
Gifted, wasn't
pounds
it?
ago.
hmm
Yeah, dude, that's been a while. Oh gosh, dude, I was a little boy back then. Um, Something that I really like to see as you kind of came and really started to make your name in the coaching realm, was just like how you were managing your time, and also just like who you are as a person. But when we're talking about the business side of coaching and managing other things with Revive, because you're the one of the product developers or product specialists, right? With
hmm
Revive supplements, what systems are you using with coaching? Are there certain apps that you're using? Are there certain things that you need to do on your end personally to allot X amount of time throughout the day just for coaching, so you can
Yeah.
hold your standard with your responsibilities with Rise, with your family, etc. I kind of want to just ask you about that, because that's something I really wanted to just dive into with you.
Yeah. So I work for Revive. I work for Raw. I work for Relive. Um, and then soon, hopefully, I'll be working with Cadence, another company. And then I coach. I have the school. So really, on the surface, it sounds like that's a lot, right? But um, I always teach like your systems are kind of what your systems will give you what your bandwidth is, because if your systems are good, and your bandwidth can be really high. And that's kind of what I had to figure out over time, like how to make this the most optimal thing. So the way that I purposely have like check-ins and stuff, um, check-ins used to be like during the week, and now they're actually on the weekend because the corporate world closes on the weekend. So like my work with Revive, Relive, Raw, whatever, kind of calms down a lot on the weekend. Some weekends, like there's no communication by anybody. Friday's usually like a half in the office, half remote kind of day for most of those places. So then like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there's not really anything going on. So my check-in day is actually Sunday. And then I answer those on Sundays just because that's a day where I have no other obligations to anything else, like as far as other work goes. So I can just focus on the check-ins themselves. And then throughout the week, I'll try to schedule check-ins for people in prep that are maybe checking in quite often, just around days purposely where I know I don't have a lot of meetings or things like that, so that I can get to them and give them the time that they need and deserve on that. And then I keep really detailed records of like every check-in. So like what I do is I have a Google sheet that has like every active person's name, and then all the adjustments I made for the week, what the current goal is, how many weeks out they are, and then if I finished the check-in or not yet. And then I just duplicate that every week so that I can just look at it real quick. I don't have to go through our messages to see what we did last, and I can just be like, okay, this is what we did last week. This is what happened, right? And then make the adjustment from there. That makes it really efficient for me to do check-ins pretty well. And then there's a thing that I do a lot, and I've posted it about it before. There's a Eisenhower decision matrix. It's just a way to look at a task and realize if you need to do it right now, if you need to do it later, or somebody else could do it for you, or you don't need to do it at all. I always tell people, like, take a task and then you ask yourself questions. How urgent is it, and how important is it? Right? Is it urgent and important? Then okay, it needs to get done right now. Is it urgent but it's not important? There's probably somebody that could do it for you. Like a website's a great example. Like people are like, oh, I need a coaching website. And I'm like, well, guess what? Yes, it's urgent, but it's not that important. Go hire somebody to do it for you, because otherwise you're just going to waste a lot of time trying to figure it out yourself. And then like, not urgent, but it's important. You got to schedule that out and figure out a time to get that done. But that whole logic I apply to like every task I have. So like whenever I get tasks from Revive or something, like I'll look at it and be like, okay, is this something that needs to get done right now, later, or can one of my like assistants do it? Then I'll just move on from that point.
And I'm
But
sure
that's
you
like,
did that same thing when it came to building your school community too, when it came to modules and stuff like that, right?
yeah. So like even with like the school, that's something where it's like making the modules, like there's so much content in the thing right now that it's like I could not come out with a piece of content and you'd probably have enough stuff for a year.
Yeah.
But like I still try to come out with a new piece of content like every month or every week or every 2 weeks, just to continue to build the whole database. But even with that, it's like a not urgent but important task. So it's something I more so schedule ahead of time. And I'm like, okay, I'll work on these lectures next week. Like it's not that they don't need to be uploaded right away. But then but then all that being said, I have 2 kids and a wife. So like I don't have the luxury of just working all day long. So like raising 2 kids, have a wife, we also need family time and things like that. But I've got my systems down pretty well. I mean, to the point where there's like 2 days a week I don't even work.
Nice.
So that's always been that's been good. So I just try to finish work every day by like 5-6 o'clock and then chill. And then Fridays are a light day. Saturday I don't do anything. Sunday I usually don't do anything until in the evening, and then that's when I start doing my check-ins. Like Sunday night.
Not gonna lie, that's why I bought a boat just now, is because like I was catching on one of my days where I didn't have any work. I was like, I was doing work anyway,
Yeah, you need to disconnect, man. It's
Yeah.
important. Like people get too like the reason why a lot of burnout happens is because people just get too driven into this work all day, work hard 24/7, no sleep type of mentality, which is not realistic. Like some of the most successful people I know wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning. They're not waking up at 4 of the fucking morning like these guys on Instagram claim.
Yeah. And Dom, I have a question, or maybe not necessarily for me, but like for people who are listening that are clients or could be clients or whatever the case may be. As a client, like what would you tell a client who has these expectations of just communication, communication, communication? I feel like a lot of times there's these coaches who have 15 to 20 clients, athletes on their team, and they're just constantly back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with them, detailed responses, that type of thing. And then there's people who, once you get 70, 80 to 100 clients on your team, like in order to keep the quality of coaching that that person needs and is paying for, it's hard to respond to people all day, every day, like urgent matter, that type of thing. So like what would you say to someone who kind of has those expectations of being answered immediately or whatever the case may be?
I mean, I think all those messages need to always have again a decision making matrix on the message,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
it's like I get messages sometimes where I'm like, I don't need to answer this right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to answer until tomorrow because
Yeah.
it's not something that needs to get answered immediately. So I actually apply kind of that decision making to messages I get from clients as well.
Hmm.
And then this is one thing that I'll always say: if you're working with a coach, working with me, whatever, and you want this crazy response time, just be prepared for that coach to actually probably lack in what the actual response should be. I don't answer some people not purposely. It's because I can't give you the time to give you the response that's necessary for what
Yes.
you're asking
Yes.
me.
Yes.
Like I'm
Yes.
not going to do things fast just for the sake of doing them fast.
Hmm.
Even if that means I'm a day late, I'd rather be a day late and actually deliver what needs to get delivered than be immediate and deliver a quarter of what actually needs to get sent to you.
Yep. Yep.
That's
And
why,
I
like,
think
dude, with new plans, I tell people 3 to 5 business days. Like, yes, I'm sure it takes me an hour to fucking make it, but like, I'm not gonna just do it for the sake of doing it as fast as possible just to send to you, And then like, I'll tell people 24-hour response time, like again, if it's 6 o'clock in the afternoon and like I'm giving my kid a bath, like I'm not answering you until the morning, you
Hmm.
know, like,
yep.
Yep.
and the season of life of the coach is important. You need to
Hmm.
recognize that the dude's a human being too. Like
Yep.
we're not robots,
Yeah, that's
and
something that
just,
like,
yeah, I mean, I see it. It's online. Like if your coach doesn't answer you by 11 in the morning, they're
yeah.
probably bullshitting. Like, bitch, no, I do
Bro.
10 times the fucking shit you do. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I can't
exactly.
I can't stand like those posts you see. It's like other coaches trying to post something.
don't bash another coach's
Yes,
ability to do something for the sake of you trying to get clients.
one
That's
hundred
Yes.
percent.
fucking sad, bro.
Because I see
Yeah.
this shit where people are like, top 5 qualities you should look for in a coach is like they'll say like the best communication. Your coach should be there for you when you need it the most. Answering your questions not just with a plain answer, but with an in-depth answer. And I'm like, do we not
Dude,
have value,
I've slid up on stuff like that and been
dude?
like, I take 24 hours, and they're like, "Oh, you're an exception," and I'm like, "Well, then
It's
your
always
point's
that.
invalid, bro."
Dude,
Yeah.
there's
It's always
people
that.
there's people that don't like me for me disagreeing with them on simple shit like that.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
I will say like early on, like, I feel like younger in my kind of like bodybuilding and stuff. For example, one of my first coaches was Jansen, and he used to take a day, 2 days sometimes to respond. And when I was, younger and more naive, that was like it bothered me a little bit, but also I grow into, my own as a coach, and I see like, okay, this shit really does like it's not as easy just to like we're not just sitting around on our phones all day or our computers all day just responding to messages every single time that they pop in our inbox. So
And when
yeah,
we're at the gym, that's
yeah,
our time at the gym. I don't want to talk
exactly.
to my athletes about checking responses, this,
Hmm.
and that.
Oh
That
man,
work. Yo,
let me add
I'm
something
at the
to
gym.
that.
I'm also a bodybuilder too, so it's like
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
my fucking time, bro.
the gym thing's important to talk about because a lot of coaches will like body competitive this aside. a lot of coaches sacrifice their own health for the sake of getting clients and just being that guy and being busy and making money. I'll be the first to tell you, bro, your business will crumble if you don't keep up with your own fitness. And not because of like a leadership example, more so you'll just feel like shit and
Yeah.
your
Mhm.
quality of work will really start to hurt. I mean, it happened to me when I stopped competing and made the decision to stop competing. I had no clue what to do in the gym. I was going to the gym once a week. I was like probably the most unhealthy I'd ever been. And like, I could just tell like, whatever, I'll do this tomorrow. Like, whatever. I just didn't have any motivation to do anything.
Yep.
Yeah. So like, bro, like I'm hard on that, man. If it's your time for the gym, it's my time for the gym. I'm not talking to you. Like
I mean, dude, yesterday
I turn my
I
WhatsApp notifications off
Yep.
when I'm at the
Yep.
gym.
100%. I told one of my athletes, she's a competitor, great girl, been with me for a while, busts her ass. But I'm like, you know what? It was a spot where I just right when she sat down to talk to me after I got done with the set, I was like, all right, Nick, you just got to draw the line in the sand right now. And I told her, I'm like, hey, there's a reason that I turn my WhatsApp notifications off. And when I'm in the gym, it's not for you to ask me this shit in the gym. It's because I don't want any communication, And it's like, I think that also does a lot for the athlete or the client, if it's lifestyle or if it's contest prep. And I think that they start to realize like that there is a line in the sand and that their coach actually does need to have his own
No,
time,
yeah,
their own time.
boundaries are very
Yes.
important for coaching.
Yes.
Like,
I totally agree.
you should be using WhatsApp at this point just because you could have a business WhatsApp. You could set up auto reply. Like my auto reply turns on at 7:00. You'll get an auto reply that says, "Hey, I'm done working for the day. And I'll get to this first thing in the morning." Um,
100%.
and that's there's nothing wrong with that. Like yes, we're self-employed, and a lot of people will say things like, "Well, you're self-employed. Like you should just be able to work all the time. You don't stop working." Maybe in the beginning of my career I was like that, but now it's like I'm happy as fuck. Like I'm chilling, I'm good. Like, but it's because I got so good with my boundaries and like
Yeah.
I'm able to do a lot more with my. Which also boundaries will slowly start to make you more efficient, and
Yes.
you'll actually get better at your job and your work because of your boundaries.
And
Something that I'm learning the hard way right now.
oh, as we're on the topic, man, this is actually I like this because you just said you had to shift your opinion of what that meant for you when you started to really get more developed in coaching, more advanced in coaching, bringing up greater roster numbers. But apart from that of boundaries and time allotment, what's another thing that you've had to shift your opinion on throughout? I mean, that can be drugs, it can be approach to a contest prep, peaking, or just regular how you approach somebody's improvement phase. What's something that you once thought that you may think a little bit differently on nowadays?
Um, my drug approach has changed quite a few times. Um, I was brought up in the camp of like I was brought up in a I'm not gonna say any names. So I was brought up in the camp of like higher dosage stuff, and then I mean that
I'll
was for
say
me.
non-Jew it.
No. um,
Okay.
no. I was brought up in the camp of like forms, like so like you're using high doses, and I'm learning from that exposure. And then from there, I got into like this low exposure thing, and I tried it for a year, and I was like, why does everybody look so terrible? And then I moved on from there to kind of a middle ground. Like I'm a test is king kind of guy. You'll take as much test as I think you can take until your estrogen's too high. And then I lean into every drug. I think every drug has applicability. I don't think there's anything that's like super off limits. I mean, there's certain ones that I wouldn't touch, but then there's some anabolics that get demonized for no reason. So the
Yeah.
drug choices have changed a lot over the
Can I
past couple of years.
can I ask you on that? What are certain things that you definitely wouldn't touch? You can be direct as you want to be in terms of if it's a fat burner or if it's an anabolic, um, because there's a big topic recently going on in the anabolic education world on Instagram and YouTube about dihydroboldenone. Is that what's your thoughts on
Bro,
that?
I was using DHB 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Now it's popular.
Yep.
But
Exactly.
okay, like a big one's EQ. Like I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything wrong with EQ. If you have red blood cell problems, stay away from it. If you have hematocrit problems, stay away from it. Um, every anabolic is going to have some sort of kidney toxicity to some degree. EQ works really well for some people. EQ also, for some people, has the ability to actually control estrogen.
Yes.
So for some people, it might actually be a key to not having to use a bunch of AIs.
Yeah.
But that's like
100%.
one that like I never had that anti EQ thought, but it was one I used for a lot of time with people. Um, I would say like DHB. I think DHB is a cool drug. Um, it's practically like test without aromatizing. That's kind of like what it's like compared to.
Yep.
A little bit more anabolic potency, but DHB is very hard to stabilize in a vial. So the problem with that is that it has to be mixed with certain things, and one of those is like glycol. I might have botched the word, but injecting a lot of that all the time is pretty toxic. So that's one of the things that kind of keeps me away from it now. I used it when I was bodybuilding, and I liked it, but it's a painful shot. You're probably taking a small dose every single day because of the painful shot. One thing that I've seen consistently is just liver enzymes on it. Sometimes they're a little bit more elevated, which is interesting because it's injectable. But there are people that claim it does nothing to the liver. But like I coach Todd Lee. A lot of people
No,
don't know that.
no,
But
that's why I bring it up because I'm friends with Todd. And him and I just have conversations offline
yeah,
all.
so like I coached Todd Lee and like um, he wanted to try DHB. We did, and Todd is very diligent with labs just because he
Yeah.
likes to run his own experiments with drugs. Um, but like with that, like the DHB did elevate like his GGT, and then we stopped the DHB for his prep. Now we're just not even doing it anymore. But um, that was something. What else? I mean,
I got
I like orals in the off season.
okay.
And some people are really against that. But like I just said that, and people will be like, well, that's stupid. That's wrong. But you need more context. You can't judge a coach
Right.
based on just one little thing they say. So, like, I'll use it for breaking a plateau. Maybe it's a strength plateau. Maybe it's a weight plateau. We'll use a smaller dose, like, everyone when you think of anadrol, everyone's like 50 milligrams, right? Maybe I give you 15 milligrams, and you take it just on days you do your chest or something like that. But that helps you break through like a training plateau or a weight plateau. And I'll do that like periodically throughout an off season, like 2 weeks at a time on specific training days only. The second it starts to mess with your digestion, if it does, you stop it. And it's as simple as that. I think there's good application. I mean, orals are some of the strongest steroids we have available to us.
Right.
Anadrol arguably is the strongest. So,
Right. And that's one thing too. Like I've learned when we were talking about EQ and now we're talking about orals in the off season. I used to be the type of guy where I'm like, no, they have no application. But until I started to realize the application per the individual context or why I'm actually using them. But people also they always demonize Anadrol, like, oh yeah, I take Anadrol and it kills my appetite. I'm like, yeah, well, what dose are you taking it at? You know what I'm saying?
yeah, you
And
want to really learn about orals?
yeah.
Go learn about orals in the space of endurance sports, not in
Oh
the
yeah.
space of not in the space of like physique enhancement, because and then also medicinally, again, medicinal use.
Yep.
Go look at the doses that were done then versus what the dose like standard is in bodybuilding now. You'll be shocked at like the small amounts that do a lot, and that's something that like my mind has changed on with like orals too, as far as like dosing and applying doses. Like Anavar is one that like everyone takes 50 to 100 milligrams every time they take it, but it's like 10 milligrams goes a long way, 15 milligrams goes a long way. Yes, it's not as dramatic, but
Yeah.
we want to also be. I'd rather be exposed to something like that as an athlete longer without having, so then the dose is going to be lower, and I'd
Yes.
rather be exposed to it a little bit longer
I have
because
a
that. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask you a question because I thought you're done. So, but when it comes to Anavar, if somebody can afford it and they can get their hands on it or they can source it, um, do you like using the Anavar like the troches?
Yeah,
Um,
those aren't bad.
I've noticed that I've seen a lot less issues in terms of I don't want to say issues, but a lot less like just liver elevation on blood work when it's sublingual like that. And I just wondered if that's something that you like. Hey, if you kind of try to drive traffic to that, their
Yeah,
ability to
troches
source
are
it.
good. If you can get
Yeah,
source troches from a clinic or something, I would
yeah.
say they're a good option.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Now Taylor and I have talked about on the podcast for a couple episodes, and now that we're on this topic, you can be as straightforward as you want about it, but DNP, because there's a lot of talk about out there about DNP, because we've also
I knew
talked
this was coming.
about SLU 332. And we talked to Matt Casano about SLU and DNP, and he gave us his opinions on it. And I was actually surprised with what he thought, but I did wanted to ask you, like, is that something you used to use, don't anymore, still use it for application, whatever?
I use SLU with everybody.
Yep.
SLU has practically replaced Clen for me,
Oh
Me
yeah.
too.
which I'm very happy about because I was never a fan of Clen just from a mechanism wise. I just felt like that would be a drug if it was abused too aggressively could cause some really big problems.
Yep.
That was just always my thought process with Clen. So I like SLU. I do believe SLU dosing is still something we have to figure out because we're extrapolating from animal studies on what dose to use. So I err on the side of like, is micrograms really enough? Um, so where like most of my clients are taking like a milligram.
Yeah.
Um, and then with that, like you got to be careful with like mitochondrial dysregulation. So like we always use urolithin A to like stimulate mitophagy, which is kind of like programmed mitochondria death, recycling mitochondria.
Excuse me. Can you go into that again? You use what?
It's a supplement. It's called urolithin A.
Okay, I
Uh,
didn't hear. Okay,
it
got it.
helps induce mitophagy. So like programmed mitochondrial death. The reason why is like SLU is like you pressing the throttle on the gas pedal the whole time.
Mm.
It's really efficient at helping you make a lot of ATP. What happens when you produce a lot of ATP? When mitochondria produce ATP, they also produce a lot of reactive oxygen species, which are free radicals, and oxidative stress buildup is really high. And over time, that can cause mitochondria to become dysfunctional, which then causes these damps to form, which then starts to cause a lot of negative things inside of cells. It can turn cells senescent, which then they just release a bunch of like inflammatory molecules and then cause like a low grade inflammation. That's like the grand scheme of it, right? So things like urolithin A can help recycle mitochondria by inducing mitophagy and just helping with the total mitochondrial health while you're on SLU. And then
So,
things like CoQ10 are really important, and
yep.
PQQ, those are direct mitochondrial supplements that I also suggest to take if you're taking SLU.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask too. Do you use PQQ and CoQ10? Because that's what I have Parker. Well, mostly everyone I have taken SLU. However, I have a question. Do you use those supplements daily while you're using SLU, or are you like, okay, we're going to use SLU on training days and then rest days, we're going to slam those supplements, restore
No, I
everything, go
just
from there?
have them take it every day. It's just easier
Okay,
for everybody to remember.
okay,
And then,
got it.
GMP is kind of the opposite. Like it kind of punches a hole into your fuel tank. So you start to leak ATP. You'll bleed ATP essentially with DNP. Um, and then a lot of your ATP production, like from glucose is interrupted, right? That's why it's a lot of heat production when you have a lot of glucose intake when you're on DNP. Um, but DNP is obviously very effective at losing fat. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
Um, DNP is, there's BAM15 too now, which is another mitochondrial uncoupler with a really short half life, 1 hour. It's also tissue specific, which DNP is not tissue specific. And DNP's half life is more closer to 36 hours. So the reason why BAM has gotten really popular, but is just wildly expensive, is because you don't get a lot of the side effects that DMP causes, but you do have the potential for just as much fat loss.
So
No. Oh, sorry.
what's the big difference between those? This was a conversation that was had at Universe, and
The
one of our
tissue
friends,
specificity
yeah,
is a big thing. And then the half-life is a huge thing,
okay,
which is a
so
big reason why DMP causes so many side effects is because of the half-life.
because it compounds,
Yes.
Yeah.
And
For
on
you,
top of that, it's not tissue specific.
right.
So
got it.
it's interrupting ATP processing everywhere. Whereas BAM is very tissue specific to fat tissue. And I think muscle tissue too.
Gotcha. So yeah, that's one thing that people don't realize. The band 15 is this tissue specificity of it, or specificity of it. And because of the half life, you said it's like around an hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would
You have to
bring that
take
in.
multiple doses a day.
Oh yeah, for sure. You wouldn't just take it once a day. Yeah. How do you like to dose it? Do you do 3-4 times per day, pre-fasting cardio,
BAM?
pre-training? Yes.
Um, honestly, I haven't used it with anybody.
Oh, gotcha.
I've tried it personally. I was really underwhelmed by it. I don't think it worked that well. But again, I think I took 50. I think I took 50 milligrams a day, and I did that 2 25s a day. But then talking to some people who knew a little bit more about it, they were kind of on the side like you probably need to take like 150 to 200. Which then at that point, like, dude, you're spending $700 a month on BAM at that point.
You take pharma growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and then like with DMP, like, I mean, I've taken it personally. I was really underwhelmed by it, like as far as like side effects went. I thought it was I thought it was a really crazy drug to be like, just like everybody thinks it is. I thought it
It was gonna
was,
kill me the first time I took it.
yeah, I thought like I took that first pill and I was like, what the fuck? Like,
I
am I gonna
was
wake
too.
up? But it really wasn't all that crazy. I think when it comes to drugs that are gray area like that, um, if you decide to use them with an athlete or a client, there's a huge trust factor that
Yep.
needs to be implemented there, because these drugs are extreme. They are dangerous. There's no denying that they're not dangerous. But the situation and the environment amplify the danger, right? So if you're purposely doing certain things to potentially put you in a position to where the DMP is really going to hurt you, then that's probably an athlete that you don't trust with that. Even
Yep.
insulin, some people will argue that insulin is the same thing. Like I use insulin with a lot of clients, but like insulin is again a huge trust factor drug, because I got to trust that you know how to draw this thing every time you take it. I got to trust that you're also being mindful of carb intake and carb availability if you were to go hypo. I think that's a big thing, because like even with insulin, like a lot of people, their first dose, I make them send me a picture of their syringe, because I'm like, it's not like growth hormone where it's 10, 20 is 1, 2, 3 IU. It's every little black line is an IU. So like I
I'm
tell them 2 IUs, they'll pull to the 20. They're about to take 20 IUs of insulin.
Yep.
I'm
So
so weary
that's a
about
big
that.
trust thing.
I'm so weary about that. I only use flex. I only let people use the flex pins because, like,
Oh,
I don't
because
know.
you
I'm
can't
just
mess that
scared.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's very dummy proof. So I'm like, just if all you have to use is like the regular injectable insulin from a
Yeah.
needle, like, nah, we're just
I
not
mean,
gonna use that.
I mean, also to answer the question, um, like I've used DMP with a few clients, but it's not something I use a lot with people. Again, just there's a danger factor with it when it comes to trusting the environment that the person puts themselves in. So that's a big part of why I just kind of stay away from it. BAM, I would probably use a little bit more if it wasn't so damn expensive, just
Yeah.
because now the threshold of danger is a lot lower because of half-life shift, and then also the tissue specificity is really important with that.
Right. No, I just wanted to ask, man, because I mean, it's a big topic out there. I've personally never used DNP myself. I've never used it with a client. I just think,
I mean, I've
as
taken
a
it personally,
yeah, you're right.
just because I was like, I need to see what this thing's like.
Yeah.
Dude, there's no denying that it causes a lot of fat loss, but
Yeah.
I could see real quickly how that in the hands of the wrong person
Yep.
could get really bad.
And I think I always want to err on the side of caution and, also protect myself, but also protect the client, the individual that could be using it. So I really like your take on that, man. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, of course.
So kind of shifting gears here. I mean, are we good on time right now? We're an hour and
I'm
10
good.
in.
I'm good.
You're good? Okay, cool. Taylor, you good?
Yeah, I'm straight.
Cool, man. I wanted to kind of ask a little bit about some blood work stuff. And then kind of go into thyroid a little bit. But first off, I think the reason I wanted to ask you this question is because I had this conversation. I mean, I've had this conversation multiple times. Reading blood work, et cetera, with certain clients, them not understanding it. Hey, this is in the green. It should be fine. Like, why are you saying that I need to take these supplements now? Can you explain to the listeners, why the average, I don't want to say average, why a physique competitor, enhanced or natural, whatever, bodybuilder, male or female, why they can't really base their health metrics off of that generalized range, and how you look at blood work and how you are reading their values based upon symptomology, but also based upon, the desired outcome that you want.
Yeah, I mean, so reference ranges on labs are based off of average of the population, right? So
Yep.
we're looking at healthy, sick, old, young, fit, not fit, right? The list goes on. So we're looking at a really wide range of people in those ranges. That's why some of those ranges are really big. So, just because a level falls within a range doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. A great example actually is ferritin. Ferritin is really important for iron storage. You could have a 15 ferritin and it's still normal and it's in range, but you probably are dealing with some iron deficiency symptoms now, which is something that needs to get addressed, right? Why is this person's ferritin so low? And then just, again, continuing on that topic, iron's an important cofactor for thyroid peroxidase, the enzyme that is essential to thyroid hormone synthesis inside inside of our body. So, like, for the thyroglobulins to then turn into MIT and DIT, and then from MIT and DIT to then T4 and T3, TPO, thyroid peroxidase, is the enzyme that catalyzes that. Iron is needed for that enzyme to work properly. So you have, this low ferritin, borderline iron deficiency now. Now you might have some hypothyroid symptoms because of that. But all these levels will probably look normal on a reference range. And that's why it's really important for coaches to understand what's not normal in a reference range, and then what dots we can connect to other markers, right? Taylor's done the blood work classes that I have. I don't think you have, but like I have these logic maps that tell you, like ferritin is low, and then it maps out kind of like what questions to ask the person, what other markers to go look at, and then it helps you build a full picture of the entire thing.
Yep.
And that's really important. I always teach blood work, and I always tell coaches blood work, clients too. It's a game of connect the dots.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of dots to connect. So, and if you're natural, that does not exclude you from getting labs.
No.
Because, and I would almost argue that natural pushing sometimes could shift blood work more aggressively than enhanced could.
I agree. My guy doing his third show this weekend, my natty guy, I told him, I'm like, hey man, if after the show, because he wants to do a show this fall, and I mean, dude, I'll tell you what, he handles stress really well. He pushes really well. His body, I don't know, I don't understand it, and he's natural. But I told him, dude, just because you're natural does not exclude you from getting blood work. And if you're going to continue this season, we need to get labs done right after the show. Okay, like not the day after, a couple days after, but we need to see where things are at. Okay. So I really like that. And it's also too, man, with blood work, something that I see so common. And I'm talking, I see this happening when people send me, hey, and I'm not one, I don't like try to coach somebody and tell them to do something different than what their coach is telling them. I'm not going to be that ghost coach in the background. but people are like, hey, this is what this coach is telling me to do because my blood work. You can't throw shit into Chat GBT and expect Chat GBT to connect the dots for you. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't really work like that from what I've learned, also from what you've been saying. And I think people are starting to. You can't program Chat GBT to think like Dom Kuza. You know what I'm saying?
No.
So it's like I just honestly.
We're getting there.
Oh, what do you mean?
It, no. I'm just saying, like, it's getting there. You can put some knowledge bases into it, but no, I 100% agree with what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, ChatGPT is on
Oh,
a whole nother level.
gotcha.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you though.
Oh, okay. I see what you
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
Um, Talking about thyroid there for a little bit, Dom. Are you one to use body temperature tracking in contest prep?
I mean, that's a tough question, man. I think there's applicability to body temperature shifting, but the it's hard for me to fully get behind exclusively connecting thyroid health to temperature because of other hormones that are involved in temperature regulation, especially females on cycles like menstrual cycles. There's a lot of fluctuation of temperature, and especially during what time of the cycle we're at, you'll see big shifts. I track temperature, for example, with like women who are trying to get pregnant. That's a great way to see ovulation and progesterone production based off of temperature because that has a huge influence on temperature. Um, I don't think it's a bad tool. If you like to do it, go ahead. I don't do it,
Yeah.
but I look at labs and cross-reference things like cortisol, reverse T3, free T3, free T4, and I like to see how the body's converting. And then stress plays a big impact on that because of how much stress influences the enzymes that are involved in hormone conversion. So I don't track temperatures personally, just because I do think there's a little bit more detail that goes into temperature regulation that's outside of that. I mean, inflammation alone for some people can fluctuate up or down.
Yeah.
And, that alone is something that could shift your temperature based on that. So I don't
Also
think
think
it's a bad idea, but
you
it's not my
you had to.
decision maker for like if I'm going to put you on T3.
Mhm.
There's a lot of factors that go into it too. Like, did you drink water before you took your temperature? Did you take a cold shower before you took your temperature? Is it cold outside? Like, I had a girl, Nick, that Dom knows this, but I had a girl who I kind of got on the, oh, I want to track this and see if it works during prep as to whether I need to bump their T3 up or not type of thing. And her body temperatures were low for consistently for a couple days. So I bumped her T3 up from like 25 to 37 and a half. Told her, I was like, okay, now I want to test this and see what the accuracy behind it is. So I told her to get some labs done. Bro, her free T3 was a 5.3. I'm like, you can't tell me that her her body temperature was low, so therefore her thyroid wasn't
Yeah.
functioning properly, and then I bumped it up 12 and a half micrograms, and it went from being below or not normal to a 5.3. Like, no, there's no way possible. So that's when I threw that shit in the bucket.
Yeah. So the concept of this came from what was called Wilson's syndrome. Wilson's syndrome was back in the day. They would take body temperature, and that was the key to diagnosis for a hypothyroid person. So with Wilson's syndrome, that was how they argued that we could say, okay, body temperature is low, they're hypothyroid, they start thyroid meds. But the thing that happened was like, whether you agree with like the World Health Organization, FDA, and stuff or not, that's besides the point. Um, so the WHO did not recognize Wilson syndrome as a disease, and then thyroid therapy for Wilson syndrome was actually never researched. And then there's also, I know the American Thyroid Association also has a position stance on Wilson syndrome, that it's not founded upon any evidence or any research.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's where like I mean, listen, I don't think it's wrong. Go ahead, do
Yeah.
it. You want to do it. That's fine. But that's just my 2 cents on it. And I think as a scientist, like, because a lot of coaches like to play scientists, like,
Yeah.
you just stay open minded, right? If new stuff comes out, then maybe I'll change my mind. I don't know,
Right.
but that's how I've always been. But I come from an academia background, right?
Yeah.
I was in college for a long time,
Yep.
so and my mentor in college was very much like that. You know, he always told me, "Don't be married to a dogma." Like,
Yeah.
just if it's science is always changing, always evolving, and science is always challenged.
Yeah.
That's what real science is.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask you that, man, because I just think it's a very dogmatic thing to say, where you have to correlate body temperatures to thyroid health or metabolic health, and I've been seeing a lot with that in just the industry. Not every coach, obviously. Just there's a select few that they're basing their curriculum or their content off of that, and it's something that I just wanted to ask you and get another
Yeah.
opinion on, because I don't want to be married to a certain thing, and unless
Yeah.
I know different approaches. Yeah.
I mean, the only thing you should be married to is that gravity's real.
Yeah.
Like things like that. Like, you'll never see me speak in absolutes online.
Right.
It's just not in my nature, because like there's always something new that comes out that then I end up reading or whatever, getting exposed to, and I'm like, oh well, that kind of changes my idea about this now. Like, I thought this was the thing, the way it worked. You know, who knows? Everybody's opinion on SLU might change in 6 months.
Yeah.
And let's
True.
be honest, those people speaking on absolutes are doing that for marketing purposes as well.
Yeah, dude. Just like the absolutes, when people with training, their training
Mhm.
approach. Oh my God, I can't stand hearing anything about training.
You know, everyone talks about this training stuff, like these kids that are doing this. I've yet to see any of it. Like,
What?
I haven't come across like any of that stuff
What do you talk? Like, wait, like online or in person?
online. Like, I haven't
What?
seen anything that people are talking about. Like, so many
Dom.
people are like, man, haven't you seen these kids like challenging I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about.
Oh my God, dude. The other day in the gym, I saw some kid, and this kid used to, like, nice guy. Okay. Even if he listens to this or not, he'll corroborate what I'm about to tell you. He was doing some super isolated, cuffed, humorous lat pullover. And I'm like, hey, dude, stop that right there. I'm like, you can do this if you want, but I'm like, try something else, man. That's just tried and true. Just train fucking hard. You don't got to do single arm everything, single arm this. And then he gave me pushback, and he's like, well, I saw so and so YouTuber do it, and I'm like, oh my Lord, bro. I'm like, but the thing is, dude, I'm just getting sick of other people taking somebody else's approach to something to make content on, just so they can speak in an absolute and get views. And I'm like, dog, everything nowadays is so regurgitated on social media that I can tell it's regurgitated. And I'm like, is that really your belief, your opinion, or is that you just saying something with a slight twist because you saw one of your idols say something?
Yeah, no, it's interesting, but
dude, oh my God.
What do you? I work out at a Lifetime now, man, so I don't see that stuff anymore. I don't work out at Powerhouse or places like that anymore.
Dude, yeah. Oh my goodness. But anyway, man, I think right there, an hour 25. This is a great way to end it here. Taylor, unless you have anything else you want to talk down about.
No. He answered everything that I wanted to chat about. Dom, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank
It
you
means a
guys.
lot for sure.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. Dom, you're a really smart guy. Every time I've
Thanks.
talked to you. Yeah, dude.
I always say, dude, I promise you, Dom is the smartest human being that I personally know.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can corroborate that for sure.
I appreciate it.
Thank you a ton for coming on, man. I know that people watching this and listening are going to get a ton of value. Where can people find you if they just want to know more about you?
Just Instagram at Dom
Awesome.
Kuza. Super easy.
Sweet. Sounds good, brother. Well, thanks for coming in, man. We'll stay in touch. I'll see you at some shows coming up here, and hope you and the family are doing well, brother.
Thanks, man.
Got you, brother.
Appreciate it, though.